Well, hello again and welcome aboard everybody. It's Rob from PMDG back with another tutorial for our Douglas DC-6 from Microsoft Flight Simulator. We're going to pick up right where we left off before. We were just rolling up on the final approach fix and about to pitch over and start down for the runway and pattern work. This will be the first in a couple of landing videos, so let's get started. Before we get into the landing, one item I want to revisit from the previous episode, and that is setting BMEP. BMEP is a derived thrust figure that gives you an idea how much power the engine's exerting through the propeller, and it's a mixture of RPM and manifold pressure. What I want to show you is, if you watch, I am pulling the throttles back and I can reduce BMEP in doing so. But there's another way I can do it as well. Here, let me bring the throttles back up so we're back to 105, 110 BMEP. Now watch, I'm going to bring up the RPM instead. I'm slowly working the RPM forward to 2400. And watch what's happening to BMEP. It's falling off. So you can adjust BMEP with either the throttles or with RPM, and which one you choose is really kind of a matter of context, and we'll get into that in the advanced tutorials. For now, just know you can use both of them. They are related. The more you fly the DC-6, the more you're going to start to rely upon BMEP as your way of setting thrust. So okay, we are rolling up on the final approach fix. Just kicked off the automated flight engineer to run the landing checklist. So he's going to go ahead, put the gear down, a bunch of other things. There's a whole lot of checklistology that goes on here. And again, the automated flight engineer is here to make our lives easier. You can see we're going to start bringing the power back now. Generally, for an approach setting, we want to be around 90, 80 BMEP. That'll keep the airplane slowing so we can keep adding flaps and keep adding drag.
2400 RPM.
Now, the automated flight engineer is starting to bring the RPM forward, so you're going to see BMEP start to fall, but I'm advancing the throttles at the same time to keep BMEP from falling off as he's increasing the RPM of the propellers. That's just a pilot experience thing. You'll get used to doing that as you fly the airplane. Generally, flying a 3-degree glide slope, fully configured, you're going to want to be about 70 BMEP, which is where I've got it set right now. Moving the flaps to 40 degrees, moving the flaps to 50 degrees. We've now got all the drag hanging out. We've got the power set to a really good approach power, and the airplane should settle in right on its final approach speed. Of course, you're probably wondering what that speed should be. Well, there's a pretty handy placard up here on the roof of the cockpit. We can go ahead and look at our weight along the table. And the airplane right now weighs just a few pennies over 70,000 pounds, so 125 knots is our approach speed. You can see we're actually running about 5 knots shy of that, so adding a little bit of power here will cure that problem. Flying a little bit slowly, just add some power there, and then just give the airplane a chance to catch up. With a jet, you can sort of mash in a whole bunch of power and then pull that power back out. With radials, you really don't want to do that. You want to set power, set a trend, and then adjust power again once that trend gets you where you want it to be. Now, something that I want to show you from the outside that you've probably noticed if you watch videos of DC-6's landing on YouTube, the airplane approaches at a very nose-low attitude. And the reason why is it doesn't have leading-edge devices. Look at these big barn doors hanging off the trailing edge of the wing that provide a tremendous amount of drag once you get over flaps 30. What that does is it allows you to have the airplane pitch nose down in order to effect a descent, but it has a lot of drag to keep the airplane from accelerating because, as we've talked about a few times, you can't just pull the power to idle and ride down. You've got to maintain some forward thrust. So we've got a whole lot of drag there to keep that thrust from causing us to accelerate. All right, now disconnected the autopilot. I don't really like the way this ILS is lining up. So I've disconnected the autopilot. I'm just going to sort of sidestep to the right here and get us lined up visually with the runway. Now you notice I'm just really keeping a stable pitch, not making many power changes. I've got the BMEP set at about 70, probably a little bit higher than it should be. Maybe bring it back to about 62 is probably the lowest you want to go. And I say that because if you get the needle below 60, you don't really know at that point if you've gone below 60. You can see right here, there's the bottom. But if I add just a tiny little bit and it's about 62 or so, then I know I've got a little bit of thrust on there, so I'm not putting any reverse loading on the engine. So our speed is starting to bleed off now because I've put the power all the way back. Starting to look at about 105 knot ref speed. On a DC-6, you don't want to flare. It's not like a jet. We're back into that straight wing versus swept wing category. Really, you just want to keep this pitch attitude, and right as you get about 10 feet or so, just raise the nose slightly as you pull the power to idle. You want to keep the power in there right until you go into that flare. Lower the nose to the runway. Look down, throw the reverse handle. Of course, maintain the center line is always a smart thing to do. Moving back here to the right. But pop that reverse handle down and then just bring the throttles forward. Bring the power up until you see somewhere in the 20 to 30, or excuse me, 25 to 30 inches of manifold pressure range. Then you're really getting effective reverse. When you pull the throttles to idle, you'll hear that pop. That's your reverse lock going back over the gate. And at that point, add power again just to make sure that all four engines came out of reverse. That's a very important step. So again, pop that red lever down, add some power, get about 25 inches. When you're done with it, bring it back to idle. You'll hear the gate pop closed. Add a little bit of power, get about 25 inches, just so you know you got them all out of reverse. One of the little things I like to be able to do in Microsoft Flight Simulator is I just push the space button. You'll notice the view popped up there, and that I'm only 5'8", so I find that in flying the DC-3 that I really need to spend a lot of time lifting myself up out of the seat when taxiing around tight corners so that I can see down over the nose. And this sort of gives me the same capability, which is kind of nice. So taxiing clear of the runway, good pilot procedure no matter what you're flying. Don't go making any configuration changes or start throwing switches or knobs until you are well clear of the runway. Once you're clear of the runway, we can go over to the tablet and we can tap on the after landing checklist, and now our flight engineer will go through and do the entire after landing flow, which makes it pretty nice. Then all we got to do is concentrate on taxiing into the gate. So that's pretty much it. Energy management in a DC-6 is really about knowing your power settings, setting them appropriately, and then just kind of leaving them alone and letting the airplane do what inertia does. So your power setting coming down a 3-degree glide slope, fully configured, is going to be about 65 BMEP or so. If you need a little bit, take it up to 70. If you need a little bit less, take it back to 62. That's the neighborhood you want to be. So this airport is EDLP. It's Paderborn, Germany. It's the home of our dear friends over at Aerosoft. They very kindly made this airport available at no cost for users of Microsoft Flight Simulator. So if you haven't gotten it, download it. It's good stuff. And take a few minutes out and grab something else from them as well. They put a lot of work into it and certainly deserve a little bit of support from the community. So, all right. As we taxi in, something to notice here, the engine oil's hot, so when we bring the power back to idle, it tends to drop below the red line there, which turns on that warning light. Nothing to worry about there. When you're down here taxiing at ground level, it's not that big of a deal. Alright, well, I think that about does it for the straight-in landing. Next up, we're going to do a pattern circuit. Those are kind of fun. You get to do a lot more pilot stuff than just keeping an airplane pointed at the runway until you land. So, thanks for flying, PMDG. Be well, fly safely, look after one another. We'll see you real soon.